In this video, we're going to be talking about probably one of the most used things that you will use in future Swift programming, and this is closures. And before we really jump into closures and what they are and why we use them, we have to look at the closure expression syntax, because it's sometimes going to be a little bit difficult for you to understand what is a closure, when is it a closure, because you can kind of hide them a little bit. All right. With that said, let's just jump straight into this. So here we have a function which we've been over already. We have the function name, and then we have the return type. Obviously, the return type comes after like the arrow sign here, and here we have a return type of void. As we know, we could remove that. We don't have to have return type of void, but just to be explicit here. And then inside the function body, this is the function body, right? The code block. The code block, or you could say then the context. This is the area where all of the code is. So in a closure, it's pretty much the same thing. It's a code block in here. We already have a closure because you can enclose code here, right? We can enclose this local variable, and we can make another local variable here, and when we run it, you can see this is unused, but we just need to give it a name, for example, and everything will work perfectly fine again. And as you can see here, we can call David, right? But the two local variables, if we just print this out once again, and then we just say local, and we'll say inner and outer, and you can see that you get outer here, right? And if we print this here as well, you'll see you get outer, and now if we print this underneath here, you'll see that you get outer and inner, right? Outer, inner, and outer, because this is printing this local from outside, and then we're defining a new local variable within inside of this one code block. So this is now, it has its new context, all right? And so we're printing here this local variable. So it's basically what's going to happen is that it's going to look to its inner context, right? So it's going to look within inside of the code block that this local variable is defined, and says, do I have a variable of that? And if it does, it's going to choose that one instead. But if it doesn't have that local variable within inside of this context, it's going to look inside of its outer context. So this is basically just nothing more than a code block. But because we haven't, this code block, this closure doesn't have any parameters, we can remove it. And because it doesn't have a return type, we can remove it. But this is basically saying this, all right? It's doing nothing more than saying this, but you don't have to define that because it's just code that's not needed, okay? So if you are just going to have a closure which has no parameters and doesn't have a return type, or the return type is void, is the same thing, then you don't have to supply it. But what you are doing is making a code block with local context, all right, with private context within inside of here. That so this is basically what closures are designed for you to be able to wrap data, wrap business logic inside of it and pass it to something else. So let's just remove all this stuff now, right, and make a filter function, all right? And this is going to take a number, right? Let's just wrap this in parameters just to be nice and tidy. And in here, the function is going to take an integer and it's going to return a boolean. So we're going to say if num1, right, is less than 20. That's what we're going to say, and we can remove the return keyword as well. So now let's make a items, and we're going to say then 18, 22, 5, 35, 16, and 31. All right. Now, when we print out the items initially, you'll see that we should get 18, 22, 5, 35. This is self-explanatory, right? But now if we come here and we say then items.filter, and this is where we're going to add the filter function, all right? Because the filter function itself, as in, let's change this to be underscore filter function, right? The filter function here takes a function, right? It says I want to have an element as the first parameter. This is generics, right? And I'm going to return that array. But this one function type should return Boolean. And this is what our closure does. It takes an integer, or it takes an element in this case, and returns Boolean, right? And that's exactly what it does. So, but we've wrapped this logic within inside of this filter function here, this code area here, and we're passing it to the filter function right here. And so this is the benefits of closures and how you can use them. But the underscore filter function could also we could define a limit, right? And this could be 20 here. So we can use this limit constant here with inside of our filter function. We can then pass it inside of this filter as well. So we know that this filter function here doesn't have to know about limit, doesn't have to know about this. All it cares about is give me a function, and for every single item within inside of that one collection, I'm going to call that function on it, and if that function returns true, I'm going to pass it on. If it returns false, right, I'm going to discard it. And as you can see here, 18, 5, and 16. So as long as this number is less than the limit, is less than 20, it's going to be passed to the function. All right. So this is basically what's happening, and this is the magic of closures. Now, if we come here and we say items filter once again, there's another nice little thing that we can have here. You can see that we can basically just ignore the error for now. We can basically just remove the brackets here, and we can just say then item in, right? And then from here you could say item is less than, say, 20, right? And we're not getting any of the, we'll just say copy items here, and let's just print these out. Let's just put an S on the end of it to make it correct. And we run this once again. You can see it just has a lovely syntax. You don't have to write the brackets anymore. So it just allows you to go to the next line of the code. So, but this is only if a function. So let's write another function here and say tester. And if this is then, say, we'll just call it a callback. And this is then going to be like this, and then we'll just say message after here, and this is then going to return a string, no idea, and we'll just return the message. The function is not really of any relevance, okay, as in the function body is not really of any relevance. If we call here, you'll see now that it doesn't look as nice as this items filter, because we've still got these brackets here, right? So we need to return here. We'll just do return true. It doesn't look as nice as this. However, if we just changed this tester around to say tester 1, and we put this message first, and now put this callback afterwards, you can see we're going to get a completely different style here. We say tester 1, and then we say our message. And now, what's great about this is the Xcode will do it for us automatically. It's then a trailing closure, right? So it basically just brings everything within inside of the next line, so it's nice and tidy. And we still have to return true here, for example. So this is how we can use closures. Now, there are a whole bunch more things we've got to know about closures before you really start using them in every scenario, all right? But this, for me, is something that I want you to get your head around. A closure is nothing more than a function, right? But the function, if it's a global function, we talked about in the last video, right? Otherwise, if it's a nested function, which is a function within inside of a function. So if we called another, let's say tester 2, this is a nested function. It's still a closure, but it's a named nested function within inside of a context, all right? Now, however, this is a unnamed closure, right? And it can access all of the other stuff within inside of its context as well, but it can capture it. This is what's important to it. It can capture those items, those variables, those everything basically. It can capture a reference to it. So this is what's most important to understand, is that this is an unnamed closure, right? This is a global function, right? It's a global closure. And this is then a nested function or a nested closure. So there's 3 different types, and this is important for you to understand when you go through it further on as well. But function types, as we've seen here, they are basically closures being passed to other functions, just like you saw in the filter here. This is a high order function, which is a function that takes a function. Now you can also have functions that take functions and then they return functions too, or function types, but that's something different. Anyway, with that said, I hope that you've got something out of this one video. I was only supposed to talk about closure expression syntax, but I think what I've shown you the syntax. I've shown you the syntax, and if you want multiple arguments, then you just put a comma between them and so on. But this is basically how they work. But I'm going to be making a whole bunch more videos about closures and their usages. So there might be a lot of repetition, but by the end of the videos about closures, you will be an expert in it and you will know exactly how to use it. You'll be super competent, which I'm sure you should be super competent with using functions by now as well. With that said, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and do all of the other social media things that there are. Thank you very much for all of the support that you are giving me. It's super fantastic. And if you do have any questions, queries, concerns, or feedback, as always, let's start a conversation in the comment section down below. With that said, my name's David Thorne. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video. Ciao, ciao, and goodbye.